Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeffrey from Parker Dewey. We'll be starting the webinar in about a minute, just letting the Zoom room populate. I wonder how much time we've all spent waiting for Zoom rooms to start. Good to see some familiar faces and names here. Cool. I have 3:01 Central Time. Uh, so we will kick this off as a quick housekeeping. We will be recording the webinar, sharing the recording and some notes and whatnot afterwards. I'm also joined by a couple of my colleagues in the chat. Please feel free to comment or ask questions in the chat. We'll try to answer them throughout the webinar to the extent I can multitask effectively and read the chat. But if not, we'll certainly make sure we have time at the end of the session. So with that, let's kick this off. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeffrey from Parker Dewey. Really excited to join y'all today and talk about skills-based hiring and do a deep dive on how employers are using data from micro-internships to really inform smarter and more effective earlier career hiring decisions. Today, we'll explore some common hiring challenges, some innovative solutions, and some real-world applications, really with an emphasis on how skills-based hiring can lead to better hiring outcomes, especially at that early career phase. Again, please feel free to ask any questions or whatnot in the chat, but excited to dig in. So some of the challenges I've been hearing around early career talent, as we're starting to head into calendar year 2025. So these are challenges that both took place during the current recruiting season and concerns people have as they start thinking ahead. The biggest one is we have too many candidates. We need more effective ways to filter. Again, it's an interesting irony behind it because with all of the advent of one-click applications, with more reach that we all have at our fingertips, we're getting overwhelmed with the number of great candidates, great resumes to filter through, great applicants. How can companies do that effectively? The other part of it, though, is oftentimes while there's massive amounts of volume, companies are saying we're not getting the right candidate. The healthcare organization looking for student athletes, but those student athletes don't have the awareness of the organization or the time to participate in the traditional recruiting events. Another challenge we're hearing from the companies is how do we keep those candidates warm? I'm thinking about an organization I was just talking with that met a great student at NSBE and great students at the school career fairs who are freshmen or sophomores, but they were trying to figure out how do we keep those candidates warm beyond sending emails and inviting them to info sessions or other virtual recruiting events. And by the time these students are juniors, it's oftentimes too late. And again, in particular, I'm thinking about one story is that student was told the organization that she already joined another company because again, it got cold. The last big concern we hear is we're getting candidates through the process, but they end up not having the right skills or aptitude or fit. And it's leading to a low offer rate or high turnover. The other thing we're hearing is hiring managers are getting frustrated as people that have great resumes and went through that sort of quick phone screen really well bomb in the interview. The bottom line is there's just not enough data in the traditional hiring process, which has led to why we're seeing so much interest in skills-based hiring. Now, one of the big challenges, again, around the traditional process is that recruiters continue to rely on legacy signals, things like GPA, major, school, network, referrals, and they don't really predict earlier career hiring outcomes. Now, again, I think we all know that GPA is not predictive of career success, but HR continues to face two big challenges around this. One, hiring managers continue to want to focus on it, and we all know how difficult it is getting hiring managers to try something new. And two, to the earlier comment, when you have a high volume of applicants, you're looking for the easiest, fastest way to filter through. And GPA is, again, all too often used. It's no surprise that NACE reported, I think last week, that organizations using GPA to filter are rising. So we know that companies talk about the importance of core skills, communication, problem solving, adaptability, et cetera, which often aren't captured from GPA or major academic pedigree. But NACE reported a 10% increase in the use of GPA as a filter during the past year, up to 47%, and majors used by 75% of organizations. At the same time, the processes being used to engage the students aren't as effective as we would like either. Even when students are participating, they're not valuing the experience as highly as we would like. What I also find ironic from this data is that oftentimes the candidate recruiting efforts are only engaging those candidates after they've already decided they're interested. So the career sites have high value, high participation, but the only students going to the career site are those that already know they want to apply to that company. Again, there's some really, really interesting data. Now, to be direct, skills-based hiring provided a better way. Instead of relying on these non-predictive signals, skills-based hiring says, look at where the candidate is now to make your decision. And there's so many benefits to doing this. It creates an opportunity for both employers and candidates to determine the right fit based upon actual skills. And again, we're not just talking the technical skills. Can someone code in Python or use Excel? But those all important core skills. It allows candidates to show their skills through real experiences and real examples, which leads to better outcomes for everyone. Again, think about that philosophy major who's thrived in a marketing role because she knows how to communicate and craft an argument, but would have gotten filtered out based upon major. Or the student athlete who would have gotten filtered out because her GPA wasn't as high as some of her peers in school that were not student athletes, but had the coachability skills that allowed her to thrive when she got that full-time role. Or the student who's been coding in Python for literally 15 years, but chose not to be a computer science major, and again, would have gotten filtered out if a company was making a decision based upon major. Now, I'm obviously a big fan of skills-based hiring, and I think it has a lot of promise, but a lot of organizations haven't found effective ways to implement it. I think we saw it in the NACE data. We've seen in the continued discussions at various events. Ultimately, the key challenge comes from trying to reinvent hiring versus those organizations that are successfully implementing it, integrating it into their existing process. So again, it's interesting. As one of my colleagues called skills-based hiring, it's a plan without a strategy. It's been largely ill-defined and poorly executed because it can mean a lot of things to a lot of different organizations. Again, one of the big talking points that drives me crazy is skills-based hiring versus degrees. It's not about replacing degrees with credentials or micro-credentials. Another example of these multi-round case studies that happen at the end of a hiring process. Again, there's limitations. Again, whether it's around digital badging and credentials, they can be helpful, but require us to understand what those badges mean and create new assessments that aren't aligned with daily tasks. On the assessment and simulation, again, a ton of data showing that they're not as predictive or useful as we would like, and they have all of these unintended biases and consequences. Another hot area around skills-based hiring is this desire to quickly change job descriptions and sort of revisit them. And yes, there's huge opportunities to improve job specs, but companies are going through these multi-month, in some case, multi-year, heavy lift, time-consuming efforts to do it, and it's still not solving the problem, which is leading to these high setup costs. Now, we think there's an easier solution, a flexible, low-lift, low-effort alternative that allows organizations to capture that meaningful data with real-world, role-relevant projects. Basically, it's a skills-based hiring model that delivers a meaningful candidate insights, a model that doesn't require the committees or online assessments, and empowers hiring managers to actually support HR in identifying the skills that matter to really drive success on their teams. And it's because skills-based hiring should be an easier key part of a larger experiential recruiting strategy. Now, there's not one way to do it, but there are definitely wrong ways. And if your organization just tries removing the degree requirement, You already know the result is more work for HR and not better outcomes. You know it's not about redefining job specs, same outcomes. It shouldn't upend entire processes or require purchasing a variety of tools and consultants to go through this. Look, every organization's goal is to get the best qualified, best fit, best culture, most adaptable, quickest learner. But leaders in skills-based hiring realize that to get that result, you need to change the way you're building your talent pipeline. And that's done by getting the right candidate insights. Again, let's start there. How do we replace those legacy signals with actual predictive insights? And this is where we're going to spend the rest of the conversation. That Parker Dewey essentially developed a micro-internship model that provides these skills-based data insights that matter. And as we'll show in a second, skills-based hiring can be seamlessly embedded into the process itself. It doesn't require ripping out what you already have. It's not about at the end of the process, after you've already invested a ton of money and time, more importantly, on filtering, interviewing, case studies, all of this other stuff. But it's about getting the insights every step of the way without adding to the workload. The way we've done it, as I alluded to, is capturing the data before, during, and after these short-term professional projects and doing it explicitly for this early career talent. So I'm going to show you some of the data today and how employer partners are using this to address the recruiting challenges and improve the outcomes. And again, we'll show you how it's embedded in every step of the way, whether it's getting skills-based insights from the application process itself, getting it from how the student engages, and from the work product. So we're going to jump into the live site for a second, and I'll show you a real example. Here's an example of a competitive analysis project. This organization was using it to identify candidates for a marketing role, where one of the aspects of the job description was the ability to do a competitive analysis. They posted a project. Again, you'll notice they had it starting on October 21st, due about a month later. They wanted the student to research 5 competitive products, outline the details on incentives to purchase the product, and any recent changes. Pretty plain vanilla. In fact, this organization even used a template we already had. One thing I really want to draw out to your attention on this is notice that this project itself doesn't require this organization to share anything sensitive, not sharing any competitive data, not providing access to internal systems, doesn't require deep onboarding or understanding of the student beforehand. This is something a college student can do. They can go do this on their own with no coaching, no management, no oversight, and no risk. So let's see at some of the applicants. So I talked about how the application process itself is an assessment. We can quickly see that this project was up for about 20 minutes. And you can see that we already have a bunch of applicants. We have Jeffrey Moss from Parker Dewey University, who's an econ major. You can see my graduation date and when I applied, but let's dig in because all of these students have proactively raised their hand and said, yes, I'm interested. And it's not just click a button and saying yes. Jeffrey took the time to answer questions and to upload a resume and share his skills. Again, that's a good sign. But let's actually look at his answer to the question. His resume might be perfect. He might have a high GPA from a great school with a great major, but his answer ain't so good. I have good attention to detail with attention spelled wrong. Describe your relevant work experience. I drink water. It's a water technologies company, so at least he got that right. But this can pretty quickly tell. Again, think about all of those students you interview where their resumes look good, but then you find out they don't have attention to detail. Again, this is just in the application process. This is before you or a hiring manager selects a student. In comparison, let's look at Kristen Schrader. Yeah, you can still see her resume and her LinkedIn profile and all of the key info, where she's from, current address, but you can see her answer's pretty thoughtful. She didn't write a book, but she's pretty quickly able to convey why she's interested in working for this organization. She can highlight that she's from the Washington area, which is where this organization is located. She can convey why she has the right skills. Again, this is less time to review than a resume. Think about the insights you're getting. You could see a self-starter. You could see attention to detail. You could see the level of interest. You could see she has a different perspective. Now, what's great is once you select the student, whether it's Kristen or Jeff or anyone else, you're able to actually get additional insights. So as Kristen is working on the project, you can see how is her communication with the hiring manager? Is she sending professional emails? Is she checking in? Is she able to do the project in a way that conveys empathy in her understanding of the problem? Is she able to work with, call it incomplete information without deep understanding of the company to deliver something strong? Let's look at the work product itself, and I'll show you two examples. So here's two examples of micro-internships that were completed by students. The project was to evaluate the new hire onboarding process for a company. Again, it was tied to an entry-level HR role, tied to, again, new hire onboarding. They asked the student to look at some of the best practices out there for new hire onboarding and to look at some public data about this organization and to put together a brief one-page outline. This was the work product of one student. Again, think about what this shows you about the student beyond the resume. And this student was not an HR major, wasn't even a business major. But you could see pretty quickly this student was able to understand the data, was able to communicate it well, did it in a professional setting, did it in a way that was easy for me as a hiring manager to digest. That student also provided links to supporting information and even went above and beyond with 3 case studies of other organizations, best practices for new hire onboarding. Again, she did that on her own. Imagine going to a hiring manager in a department, not just with a resume or a resume and transcript or an application, but with 3, 4, 5 candidates with actual work product, able to say, here's some of the students I think you should interview. You can see this one-page work product in addition to the resume. Hiring managers love it because they can quickly look and realize this student has what it takes. And when they're interviewing this student, you don't have to stress about, do they know the right structure of behavioral interviewing? And are they going to spend the whole time talking about the school's basketball team or whatever hiring managers do in interviews? But rather they're actually going to talk about this project. They're going to use it as a catalyst for discussion. Tell me why you focused on understanding the employee adjustment process. Why is that important? How did you decide the relative order? And by the way, not all of the projects are perfect. Here's an example of another student who turned in the work. There's some good data in here, but think about communication skills and layout. Look at, again, grammatical error in here. The student did nice work, has good content, but might need a little more help on the communication. Again, for some organizations that might not matter, but for others that could be key. Again, the point is you're able to get that data. And it's not just that data. You're able to, through the platform, able to see all of this additional data. You're able to see not just on the students, but on the schools. Where are you getting applicants? Where are you having the most success? Are there schools where you may have had a ton of success, but don't recruit that? You're able to engage not just the students who complete the project, but all of the students, all 7,000 plus students who apply to this organization's micro-internships over the past year, and filter and select. And again, while you might not actually see their work product, because again, you only selected 100 of the 7,000, you're still able to get insights from their application itself. These are students who already have expressed interest. Rosa applied to 36 of your projects. That's pretty powerful. That's an important signal. You can filter based upon certain major or GPA. You can see data, again, on the total number of applicants, where they're from, how they actually perform. Again, this is skills-based hiring, and it's skills-based hiring that's authentic and without additional work. For anyone interested in learning more about the platform, I'm happy to schedule additional time to walk through, but that's sort of the highlight of the platform. Now, one of the questions that also comes up all the time is it difficult to create these micro-internship experiences? Again, I showed you one example where a company had a marketing role where, again, they had a project tied to competitive analysis, but it works for any role. Again, entry-level data marketer, gathering and analyzing and reporting marketing data. Perfect micro-internship is let's have the student do cleanup and visualization. Let's have 10 students do it. And let's see how they compare and contrast. Again, back to that earlier slide, let's see which students spend the time, raise their hand, express interest, communicate effectively when they're applying, do the work and show an understanding of the project, and then deliver in a way that aligns to that entry-level role. And again, we've unpacked this for every role out there. It could be, whoops, sorry about that. My mouse skills are subpar. So we looked at the entry-level data marketer. Let's look at the HR generalist. Again, on the left is an actual job description or part of a job description. Streamline HR processes, develop tools to evaluate candidates, provide actionable recommendations. The second project, perfect example. We want you to review and update 10 job descriptions. Again, it's another perfect example where you're not sharing sensitive data. They don't need deep insights onto your company, but they can provide some great insights to you, whether it's around actually getting that project done or insights around the student, him or herself. The last example, junior developer. Again, high stakes role. We're going to have someone inside. You're not going to give them a micro internship where they're responsible for your cybersecurity or they have access to your employee data. But can they do UX testing on a web app you're looking at putting out there? One of the projects we've seen a ton through a partnership we have with IBM is AI research. Again, this is something for anyone on this call that's quote unquote trying to figure out AI. This is a perfect project and IBM is covering the cost. Have students evaluate various AI tools. It's a great way to get that project off your plate, but it's also a way to engage and assess candidates who might be interested in AI, who are getting certifications in it, who want to work in those roles when they graduate. So why do Parker Dewey's micro-internships stand out? Well, first of all, they're real. They're not make-believe. They mirror the real work and capture those critical skills. Again, whether it's the technical skills like, do I understand cybersecurity skills, or can I code in Python, or can I use HubSpot or whatever marketing technology we use, or do I know how to do a SWOT analysis? Or they could be those other skills, problem solving, communication, grit, coachability, teamwork. Parker Dewey's been doing this almost a decade. And what that means is we have a library of over 300 of these micro internship templates organized across departments. So whether an organization's a one-person startup or a Fortune 100, whether it's in technology or healthcare or insurance or financial services or consulting or national defense, the projects align. We know what are the best projects to tease out those skills, and we're even happy to align them specifically to your roles. It's flexible and easy for employers. And again, there's no need to adapt your hiring processes. There's no need for it to be a heavy lift. And I guess the last bullet ties to something, for those of you who have met with me in the past have heard me say before, everything about Parker Dewey needs to be Jeff-proof. It needs to be easy enough that I would have used it before starting the organization, that it wouldn't create HR burdens because the students are not employees or contractors. There's no temp to perm. They're under NDA. They're not accessing sensitive info. We want this to be easy. We want it to be easy to leverage the power of skills-based hiring, and we want to make it easy for us to support you in that. And really want to give everyone an offer. So there's a QR code on the screen. And I challenge everyone who's on this session to use the QR code. And in that QR code, tell us about a single role, a single entry-level role, internship. You can do multiple if you want, that you're really having trouble filling or having massive amounts of volume and you're just having difficulty filtering the candidates. You get inundated with 1,000 candidates for every one position. Or maybe it's one where you're a CPG company and not enough college kids are thinking about finance roles at your organization, or you have a location that's difficult. you're based in Omaha and you're trying to find more students who are from Omaha but go to university elsewhere and want to return home. Not picking on Omaha. We're just talking with a company there earlier, so it's top of mind. Use the QR code or the link my colleague shared and just put in either a link to the job spec or a couple of sentences. We're happy to do the work. We're happy to show you real examples of real micro internships that could be perfect, that could align absolutely perfectly to help you either engage candidates, to help you filter them, or whatever other goals you have. Again, we love doing this stuff. I'll also share something that we're seeing more and more of over the past 30 days. We've seen a ton of organizations who are at the end of the year and they're thinking about, gosh, we have some budget we still need to deploy and it's use it or lose it. Or there's this metric that I wasn't able to hit, whether it's around certain number of schools or volume of candidates or a last minute hiring manager. What we've been finding is the end of the year is a great time to dip your foot in the water, to try something relatively small, to see what the impact of this is. And again, happy to walk through this, but the short version is it's a great way to get some of these projects done, to get insights on the candidates, to target specific programs, and to really see the data. Again, we highlight the data on the right, but my question is ultimately, will you see the same impact on your own organization? Fortunately, after working with thousands of organizations, we're pretty confident it'll actually exceed this. And again, now is a great time to do it. Again, some of the things we're hearing from other organizations, others involved in early career recruiting, they want to hit their year-end metrics. Again, whether it's around applicants, certain schools. We're seeing a lot tied to keeping candidates warm. In fact, we're running a program now, it's called the Career Fair Accelerator, where you've gone to the career fair, you've gotten to know a whole bunch of freshmen and sophomores, but you don't have summer internships for them because you only bring them in junior or senior year. It's a great way to keep those candidates warm. Or maybe they are juniors and seniors, but you weren't able to offer them an internship or you're not ready yet. Again, great way to keep them warm. We're seeing a ton where it's insurance for last minute needs. As I showed you in the demo, the company has 7,000 candidates who have raised their hand and applied. Again, not just click the button, they've actually shown real interest in this organization. Think about that HR team that gets that last minute request from the hiring manager about ooh, I really do need a summer intern or a full-time hire or whatever at the 11th hour. You can now have those candidates ready to go. It's also a nice way to jumpstart the future pool, whether it's sort of getting to know the sophomores or juniors, whether it's starting to think about what schools for the future. Again, get those insights and make sure you're well prepared. A couple other quick things, and then we'll open it up to questions. First, I invite you to join me on December 11th. We'll be joined by someone who's got deep expertise in this space for our quarterly State of Campus Recruiting. This quarter, we're going to be talking about data and the use of data in campus recruiting. I'm really excited that Steve's going to be able to join us when we're going to dig in. Again, feel free to use the QR code to join us. Second, we'll be sending an invite out in the coming days. Keep an eye out for our next Parker Dewey Plus deep dive, where we'll explore more of that data from the dashboard I was showing you, really these candidate insights, candidate intelligence strategy, and how organizations are using that data to really redefine their strategy. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. Again, I'll bring back the screen where feel free to submit any of your project ideas. Your job descriptions or links to any entry-level roles or summer internships, and we're happy to get back to you, usually same day, with some very specific examples. So with that, any questions from folks here? Michelle, if there are any that have come in, feel free to shoot them to me. Did I do that good of a job? No one has questions. Any concerns people have about doing this? Any worries? I will take the silence as a good sign. It must be because I'm from New Jersey, I talk fast. We were able to get this done in 30 minutes. Thank you everyone for joining. And again, please send your job ads, your job specs, that difficult to fill role, anything. And we're happy to get you some very, very concrete ideas. And again, through our generous partnerships with organizations like IBM and HubSpot and Amazon and others, we might even be able to help you out with some of the other aspects of it. So thank you again. With that, this concludes the webinar. Have a wonderful rest of the week.